Good morning, grasshoppers. I wanted to take this opportunity and both cover some of the things that you've been doing this past week and touch a little bit on what's coming up in week two. So, I've graded most of all the work that's been turned in so far. We, of course, have until midnight this evening to complete that. But I want to share with you that you've done a very, very good job. This first chapter in this logic text is basically an introduction, and the focus that I want is on the language that we use. They're breaking down the language a little bit, sorting out whether sentences or statements are expository or declarative, various things of that nature. And so I only want you to just be exposed to that. The I am a great adherent of the idea that language is your most important tool. I will share with you that the instant you open your mouth up and start chatting, people will be able to discern what's going on in your head in terms of quality, in terms of a subscription to excellence, things of that nature. So, one of the elements of studying logic, even in a contracted course like this, is to try to get you to just get an overview of the mechanics of language, the um, and a subscription to excellence in the way you communicate and the way you articulate. So that's what my goal is to try to accomplish with all of you this next 7 weeks, if you will. So I think you've done a good job. One of the things that I'm looking at on the other screen here, I'm looking at week two. So let me, if I can, just to help some of you out. So it says read chapter 1, pages 33 through 40. And then it says do exercises 1.3. So when we look at 1.3, and it gives you the page on 41, it says numbers 1 through 9. So you do exercise 1.3, that's the exercise number, and then 1 through 9 are the questions that you're answering. So you're going to answer questions 1 through 9. And then for the next one is read chapter 1, pages 45 through 54. Again, do exercise 1.4, and then exercises 1 through 8 on page 55. Now, I have the hardback edition of this text, and if you folks have an online version or sometimes they have soft cover versions, I'm not sure what you have. But I just wanted to explain to you because there seem to be some questions from students, and so I wanted to address those. That's the way I've delineated the exercises and the assignments. So, having said that, I hope that's helpful. Let me, if I may, just briefly chat with you a little bit on uh, the assignments for week two. On page 33, deduction and induction. So, in logic, deduction is deducing the conclusion from the premises. So, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, the conclusion is Socrates is mortal. That's a deductive argument. It goes from the general proposition to a specific conclusion. That's a deduction. An induction is just the reverse. It goes from specific notions to a general proposition. So, for example, it's very nice out today. The sun is shining. It was nice yesterday. Therefore, I conclude it'll be nice and the sun will be shining every day. That is an inductive argument. Now, the challenge, as we are going to be looking at in your next assignment, which is exercise 1.4, they're talking about validity, truth, soundness, strength, and cogency. So let me just talk to you about the main issues there. Validity. What validity is about is the correctness of the argument. So an argument is valid if the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises. Socrates is a man, all men are mortal, therefore Socrates is mortal, is a valid argument because its form is correct. That's what you need to know. The truth is, of course, what is. In logic, we are concerned with validity, which is the correctness of an argument. We're also very concerned with the soundness of an argument. So I jumped ahead a little bit. So if an argument is valid and it's true, it is then called a sound argument. So the examples that I gave, Socrates was a man, Socrates was mortal, therefore, the argument flows, it's valid, but it's also true. Therefore, it's a sound argument. So what we're looking for is validity, truth, soundness, and cogency just means that it's, it coincides with the reality of things. Now, why is this important for us to know? Because all you have to do is watch the news or watch any number of television programs or just follow what's going on in the paper and what, if you listen to some of the interviews that they do with folks on the news, you almost fall out of your chair with the invalidity and the unsoundness of arguments and positions that folks are wielding. You're going to notice that as you progress in the class. You're going to notice this more and more with your pals and your friends and sometimes even your family. Do yourself a favor. Don't get into a discussion with your mom and say, by the way, Mom, that's invalid. Moms don't appreciate that. But in any event, you're going to become more focused on those notions, as well you ought to be. It seems very clear to me that you want to be treated with that element of success or respect, such that you want to be given valid arguments and that are sound and things of that nature, so that you may respond and make responses premised on the reality of the discussion or the situation that the other person's talking about. That's the notion of truth. If we can jump ahead a little bit, I will share with you one of the challenges that folks have about lying is that they are positioning an untruth as a proposition. A proposition is just a statement that's given as a notion of that which is being true. Now, I go a little further, and in my ethics classes, I talk about this, that there's something very fundamental that you do when you lie to someone. And I want you to emblazon this on your frontal cortex, if you will. When you lie to someone, what you do is rob them of the ability to make sound, reasonable decisions premised on reality. I'm not convinced that you have that prerogative. Not just you, but you in the generic sense of the term. And that's a very serious indictment on folks. They just seem to think that lying is acceptable and okay, but it does real damage in the sense that the person being lied to, they can't make sound decisions premised on reality. Okay, enough of that. So when we're looking at this section, this next section in your assignments for week 2, that's what we're trying to cover. And I want you to just get the experience and some practice working with that, for this week. These are foundational kinds of things that we need before we get into the more technical. Some look at it as challenging stuff. I just look at it as if we stay very sequential, and if you master the little points, it's like doing mathematics. If you don't master arithmetic, you can't do algebra, you can't do geometry, you can't do trig or calculus. So logic is the same thing. It's not that hard. It just means that you need to be very focused on the little steps that we're taking. And in an 8-week course, of course, you're trying to cram, at least conceptually, 15 weeks into 8. Makes it more difficult, but certainly not impossible. And from what I've seen of your work so far this week, you're doing great. You're doing just fine. You're getting into what I want you to get into. So I want you to relax, and you're all going to be fine. I noticed that I did this morning. I went through all of your icebreakers and I read those. Very impressive, folks. We've got some good people in here. A bunch of folks that are graduating after this class. So they're going to be out there in the real world, so to speak, after they graduate. And there are several of you that are in this class that as we proceed, you may find comments that I'll make for you that you need to seriously consider graduate school. And I am of the opinion that graduate school is almost becoming a first stage entrance for many positions today. Several of you in the icebreakers mentioned that you want to become teachers. There are certain states, California is one, and New York is another, that a master's degree is required just to teach. In California, it's required just to get hired. So the criterion for some of the positions that you are striving for, those of you that are going to go into teaching, are being elevated as we speak. As you go through this class, the expectations and the criterion for those positions are, like I said, they're elevating. You want to keep that in mind. In any event, I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing this week, and I hope that these discussions are helpful for you. Once again, drop me an email if you have any questions. I respond. I look at my email every day for Rochester University, and I try to respond to students. So enjoy your week. Get your assignments done. Again, you're doing a good job, and I will catch up with you soon.